So for my lesson plan, I plan on having Home by Warsan Shire, this poem, the essence of a student's study. And the whole point of this poem, it kind of is an epitome to the idea of who am I and how does the world view me. And it goes really well with this essential question of who are we and how does the world view us. If this is an intro model text for students, because they are eventually going to have to answer that question themselves, this text does provide a good example of answering those questions. So in Warsan Shire's poem, which I'll bring up right here, she does a very good job of going through the emotions and expressing this identity crisis type of idea where she goes through her own mind as well as the mind of others and how they think and how they perceive her in the world. And that's part of that essential question that asks, how does the world view me? This poem definitely does answer that, because it goes through all the stereotypical ideas of what people think of Muslims, as well as, their affiliation with terrorism and all that type of stuff. And so having students read this poem and go through her emotions as well and step foot in her place, it allows them to kind of explore that idea of how they might want to answer it themselves. So I think this text is a really good example of answering that essential question. Students can have a good introduction to it. The good thing about this poem is that it's very chunkable, and by that I mean having students be designated each part of this poem allows students to come together at the end of it and actually present their findings, which is the whole point of this lesson as well. So let me go through some of the key things here. We got the essential question, who are we? How does the world view us? The central source in theory is definitely that model. The main text that we've been working with, Rethinking Ethnic Studies. This is one of the main Common Core standards that I was working with. Cite strong and thorough textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly is what the inferences drawn from the text. This text charting activity goes really well with this Common Core state standard, which let me go ahead and explain. So basically, this text charting activity that students are going to be doing is they're going to have to be making claims based on what the author says as opposed to what they do. And I kind of give them examples here of what the author might say. The author writes, explains, states, claims, discusses. They're going to have to say explicitly what the author is saying in this poem based on their chunk that they're given. And then on the other side, what do those words actually do? What it introduces, it provides, it illustrates, it questions, it challenges. And so students will have to do this in small groups. So let me go ahead and take you through the lesson plan as a whole. So for the intro, the teacher will introduce this poem by having students read it by themselves, probably like skimming through as a cold read. And the teacher will ask students to annotate the poem, making one annotation where they say one or two lines that stood out to them for whatever reason. And after they are done annotating and explaining why, they will share these one or two lines with the small group. And with that small group, they will kind of get a good idea of what the other students think and collaborate and build on each other's ideas to get the essence of what the poem is about before they actually start chunking it and analyzing it on a deeper level. So after, students will share in small groups what they thought, and then after that, students will open up as a class and we'll have like a class discussion where students are able to share what they thought of the text. Next, once we get into the text charting, that's when students will access that document right here. And in small groups, that's where they will go through those ideas and try to figure out what does the author say versus what does it do for them. That's going to be this text charting activity here. Once students are done with that and they have a good idea of what the author says versus what they do, then we'll move on to the text charting presentation. In this section now, the teacher will ask students to come up as a group and present their findings and their explorations based on the chunk that they were designated. And we'll do this in chronological order just so it makes sense to the audience and the people who are being presented to. After we get a good understanding of the poem and answering that question of who am I, how does the world view me, then that last part of the lesson is having students do a discussion board where they answer that essential question if Warsan Shire was to be answering it. So let me go ahead and read this part of it. It says, the student will write a discussion board of 150 to 200 words where they answer the question, who is Warsan Shire and how would she say the world views her? How does she view herself? And to use textual evidence to support their answer. Students will have to respond to a classmate and acknowledge something significant that they mentioned in their post. And so that's the success criteria for this lesson, is when students come at the end of this and try to figure out what is Warsan Shire saying about herself, how does she view herself, and how does she understand that the world views her. And that is the lesson plan for this section.